running game of the Saints at all costs, which they did, and to see if Drew Brees could beat them, which he did. Wilbon, did the Panthers make a bad decision to load up against the run?
No. And I know you can say, well, why make the Hall of Famer beat you? Because they maybe figure that they are better constructed defensively to do that. And not only did they think they held them to 45 yards rushing
combined,
but they had a chance to win the game.
They did.
They had the ball. I know it was at the 36 and it probably should have been at the 50, but even so, you got the ball on the road with a minute and a half, 2 minutes left to win the game. That's the right call.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that maybe Ron Rivera made the wrong call in this. You can't stop everything. Right. You can't stop everything. You got to pick your poison in that particular place. But Drew Brees went over 300 yards passing for the 7th time in the postseason.
That's what he does.
There's only 2 guys ever, right? There's only 2 guys ever, Brady and Manning, who've done it more times. He's the most accurate passer in the history of football. And I'm not even saying it's a wrong call, but I'm saying it might be a wrong call. Let me also say this, that New Orleans is better than Carolina. They've beaten them 3 times now. They've proven they're better. But as you say, because of what Sean Payton did, because on a 4th and 2.
Let's get to another self-proclaimed genius.
4th and 2, instead of punting, he had a real play, and maybe it was intercepted and maybe it wasn't. But your point is well made. Carolina had time, and Carolina had the ball, and then Cam Newton got the grounding and the 10-second runoff, and then he got planted. He got planted.
You know, imagine if he just had another receiver like Kelvin Benjamin, 6'5", who could go and get it. Oh, wait. His management got rid of that guy.
Right. That's
so
right.
he did this season to me, and it continues in the playoffs. It's about stupidity. It's about stupid things that happen on the field, 4th and 2, let's try to throw the ball instead of punt the ball. It's about all sorts of bizarrely risky decisions, I think many of which emanate from analytics and the overuse of them. And coaches don't just do smart things anymore,
Sean Payton, to be fair, he has coached in that city for 10 or 11 years now. He's an offensive guy. He said, I was going for the jugular. I was trying to win that game.
Because he was about to gag it up. He could have choked himself.
Okay, as it turns out, it worked out for them. And I'm saying of New Orleans that they're a good team. Now, do they go to Minnesota? Right? They go to Minnesota, so they're indoors. They're an indoor team indoors.
There's 2 indoor teams. There's no advantage there, except maybe Minnesota's defense is even better than Carolina's defense.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But Drew Brees, given an opportunity, if it's close, he can beat you. I think they have I'm not saying they're better than Minnesota. I'm saying they go in there with a real chance.
They're even teams. There's no upset there, whoever comes out of there with that. But I'm looking at Carolina. And you know what, Tony? Cam Newton, who we're going to spend some more time on here, he was great in that game.
He was.
He really was. And I thought they deserved to win after what your boy Sean Payton did.
Worked out for him.
You going to call it a genius move? You want to call it that?
I would say that in hindsight, it worked out for him. He went for it. He went to win.
His defense saved
He went to win.
The fact that Cam Newton played fabulous for the most part is being overshadowed by the scrutiny the Panthers are getting from the NFL for quickly clearing him to play after he was pounded to the ground with 8.5 minutes to play. A rule on the books less than a month insists a player who demonstrates vertical instability, whatever the hell that is, be taken to the locker room, not that goofy blue sideline tent.
Well, that was Travis Kelce. Vertical instability.
Newton insists he was poked in the eye. Your boy Ron Rivera says he took a knee to buy time for his back up to warm up. He's my boy.
He's your boy.
Tony, did the Panthers violate protocol to get Cam back on the field?
Of course they did.
Of course they did.
Of course they did.
And you know what? I applaud them for doing it.
And this is something that needs to be discussed. There is a real conflict here. Players want to be safe. Players don't want to get CTE. But players want to play.
Especially in a playoff game.
They want to play.
To suspend these rules for the fourth quarter.
That's so insane.
And
coaches want them to play. Cam Newton is a league MVP. You ain't got no chance if you don't have Cam Newton out there. And so the great conflict here is that players want to be safe, but they don't want to save themselves.
The great conflict is a football lie. Cam Newton should be saying, whether he's in the blue tent or the locker room, listen, buddy, I can wire your stuff to an offshore account, but I'm going back in the game. What do you need? 50 grand for your kids? You cannot have that rule determine you're going to take a guy off the field. I'm sorry. Then play golf. Tony, I know what you're saying. All these things are set up for safety. But, of course, they got him back in, and they should have gotten him back in.
And this is why Ron Rivera wanted him to take a knee and stay on the field so that Derek Anderson can warm up. Now, Cam Newton's really good, and Derek Anderson's really not
I
good.
forgot he's in the league.
So you
For
need
10
to,
years
you
I
need
forgot
to have,
he's in the league.
If Cam Newton can stall and gather his senses, and he can somehow get cleared, which apparently he did,
50 grand.
then you can have all the rules in the world.
Payola.
Because the people on the field and the people coaching,
their
they don't
livelihoods depend on Cam Newton.
That's right.
And you're asking a doctor to do. I understand he's taking an oath. Blah 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 blah. These rules are stupidly applied, Tony.
Well,
you're going to have to do something else to say, okay, what is the severity of what we're looking at that time frame? You're not going off the field.
The most famous incident this year is Russell Wilson ducking into a tent
I was
for
at that
less
game.
than 5 seconds and running out. And every time this is talked about, we're going to say the instinct of a player is to play. So you better hold him down and get him off the field.
Because what happens when your whole staff gets fired because you lost the game? With Cam Newton out there, they had a chance.
They did.
They almost won that game.
Let's turn to the really big game now, the thriller in Jacksonville between the Jags and the Bills. You want drama?
Where was it?
You get Nathan Peterman in the last minute. You want scoring? Well, you don't get that. Wilbon, by beating Buffalo with a quarterback who ran for more yards than he threw for, did your estimation of Jacksonville go up or down?
My estimation of Jacksonville went down. My estimation of Buffalo went down. My estimation of the officials working this game went down. My estimation of Bortles, who every NFL defender finds loathsome for some reason we have yet to discern. We've been asking people for weeks. Everybody. Tyrod Taylor, down. All things in this game. My estimation of the Waffle Houses in Jacksonville went down.
Yeah, this,
Everything went down.
I will confess to people that I called you during this game a number of times. And two things I remember saying are this game has set football back for 20 years. This is torture to watch. And then I also said, I know Blake Bortles is bad. He's really bad. Tyrod Taylor is the worst passer I've ever seen in the NFL. He cannot hit open people. Bortles, at least, on a 4th and 2, he made the one pass for the one score that they had.
Tony.
Terrible.
Those looked like 6 and 10 teams at best. Those look like quarterbacks who need to be replaced. Each of them, both of them, and you're wondering, this is what the NFL playoffs have come to. Look, you often get, we've had 7 and 9 teams and 8 and 8 teams. These teams have better records, but they were dreadful. And there was nothing entertaining about the game. There was nothing compelling about the game. And the officiating, do we think that was an interception? Did he actually keep the ball off the ground at the end of that last play, the Jacksonville defender? Or should Buffalo have gotten another chance?
I thought Peterman should have had another chance.
26 seconds left, I think?
I thought that hit the ground. But mostly there was this sort of body-numbing feeling from watching this game and watching what appear to be two bad teams. I understand that Jacksonville supposedly has a great defense, but you cannot measure it against Buffalo because as we sat here on Friday, I said to you, how's Buffalo going to score? They can't score. So when you hold a bunch of teams to under 10, but the teams aren't any good, what do you do? What does that say about you?
Two things that were not going to happen this postseason, and now one we don't get a chance to see. The Kansas City Chiefs, if they'd won 100-0, were not going to go back to New England where they won in the regular season and beat Bill Belichick and Tom Brady again in the postseason. That wasn't going to happen. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, who beat Pittsburgh in Hines in the regular season, they're not under any circumstances going back to Pittsburgh and winning a second game.
Do you remember what happened in
that
game? Ben Roethlisberger got picked off 5 times. At the end of that game, Ben Roethlisberger, as he's wont to do, facing a whole crowd of people with microphones and cameras, said, maybe I don't have it anymore. Maybe I don't have it. So I think the revenge motivation will be enormous. And I don't know, again, I don't know how Jacksonville's going to score. How are they going to score?
They couldn't score against Buffalo.
That's my point. How are they going to score?
Look who's favored on the road in Philly this week, Tone. It's the Atlanta Falcons, who used ball control to both gain an advantage offensively and slow down the Rams' prolific offense. Matt Ryan completed 70% of his passes again, running his streak of doing that in the playoffs to 5 games, which is territory long owned by Troy Aikman. On the other side, your boy Sean McVay, who you've been slurping as coaching royalty all season, he got a grand total of 13 points at home. So do you come away from this game more impressed by the Falcons or disappointed by your Rams?
Now, you remember that I told you this was the one game I thought a visiting team would win. I thought that Atlanta could win this game. But if I'm being honest with you and answering that question, it's more the disappointment of the Rams, who've been great to watch all year, and they couldn't hold the ball. on special teams.
Well, that's one guy. That's a big problem.
And he's a Pro Bowl guy.
Yeah.
And they couldn't hold on to the ball, and it looked like, and the words of Steve Young are echoing in my head, that playoff experience is really meaningful.
It matters.
Because they didn't look like they were ready for the prime time. And that was disappointing to me because I'd come to really like watching them play.
They have been fun, but again, they're at home, and the Falcons does play into their indoor situation. It was probably about 68, 70 degrees in Los Angeles. By the way, it's not even going to be cold in Philly next week. On Saturday. Yeah. So they get another sort of
saying they have a chance.
Atlanta's got more than a chance because they got their quarterback, and Matt Ryan, 70% completion rate. I mean, he separated himself from guys like Warren Moon was one of them who had 4 straight. I'm not sure who the other was. But Atlanta really did play with a certain arrogance born of, we've had this shoved down our throats before. That's not going to happen today. And it did seem like there was a certain attitude they played with. Steve Young talked to us about in the regular during the week.
They've been there before. They knew what to expect.
Yeah, but okay, so the Rams, is this a situation where they're going to become the new Minnesota or Atlanta where they just can't break through?
Or
does this really qualify as experience for them now?
Well, I think it does, but this is
Jared Goff was okay. He played pretty well.
I don't think you can make any judgments about the Los Angeles Rams other than they had a wonderful year. But if we spin this forward, because you mentioned Atlanta being a favorite in Philadelphia, this is incredibly rare. This is a wild card team being favored over the #1 seed. But it's one thing. It's Nick Foles, and it's not Carson Wentz. But what I would suggest here is that Philadelphia wasn't just Carson Wentz. They got really good running backs. They got the #1, I think they have the #1 defense against the rush. Yeah, I wrote that note down. Against the rush, and #4 in point allowed. So I think it may be too easy to discount the Eagles in this game.
No, because what we've been talking about, what made the biggest difference this weekend in these playoff games? Quarterbacks. In the one game where you had 2 great quarterbacks, both those quarterbacks were great. It was a great game.
Yes.
And the guy who might have a hangnail difference, Drew Brees over Cam Newton at this point in their careers, he won the game.
Yes, he did.
And the other ones, the quarterbacks have stage fright.
So you're saying they have no chance?
No.
You're saying Philadelphia has no chance?
I'm saying if I had to pick this week, I would pick Atlanta. And I don't like Atlanta. I would pick the Falcons.
We finish up here with the Kansas City Chiefs blowing a 21-3 halftime lead and losing late to Tennessee. The officiating in this game was highly questionable. But most questionable now is the playoff record of Andy Reid. He's now 1-4 in Kansas City, including blowing a 28-point lead a couple of years ago. He's 1-6 in his last playoff games, last 7. Wilbon, do you put the Chiefs' collapse on Andy Reid?
Yeah, probably so. Probably so, Tony. I mean, coming into that game when you're a veteran coach like Andy Reid, who you and I talked about this all weekend, we both think there's no thinking. He's a great coach.
We think that.
Okay?
That's right.
Yet, he has got to anticipate his team. He even made an emotional appeal to the fans because he knows what it's like in there. I told you that Friday. It's a place where the moment the other team sort of turns the momentum, the whole place shuts down. Yeah. And there's a fret on that you can't believe there. Andy Reid anticipated it. If he knew it about his crowd, he should have known it about his team, that it was possible, and you have to do something with that 21-3 lead other than blow it.
We're old enough to remember a whole bunch of coaches over a whole bunch of years, and Marty Schottenheimer comes to mind. Marty Schottenheimer's record in the playoffs.
Some of those games in Kansas City.
Yeah.
AFC title game he lost there.
You can hire Marty Schottenheimer. You can hire Andy Reid. They will get you to the playoffs. They'll make you better than you were before they got there. But something, and I don't know what it is. It's hard for me to blame Andy Reid. I don't want to blame Alex Smith. I don't really know who to blame. I know Andy Reid is a really good coach. I will say this, watching that game, Mariota fumbled. And it wasn't called.
Yeah.
Kelsey fumbled, and it wasn't called. The notion that you take all-star crews and put them together for playoffs, to me, is crazy. Take a crew you like.
The best crew.
Yes,
advance them by crew.
Yes.
We both agree on that. But let's go back to Kansas City for a second, because there's going to be overreaction. Talk about overreaction Monday. If you're in Kansas City right now.
Do you think they would get rid of Andy Reid?
I think there are people who want to get rid of him. I lived through a situation like this with Lovie Smith, who took teams to the NFC title game, and the next year went 10-6 and was bounced. And they still haven't found a coach. We're going to get to that later. They're still looking for a head coach.
We got an hour. We're going to get to everything later, even dinner.
And that's a guy, Lovie Smith, like Andy Reid, who has been to a Super Bowl, did not win it, is a terrific coach. Players love being in his locker room, and yet those guys can't get over the hump and they get fired. What's going to happen to the quarterback? My quarterback. What's happening to Alex Smith, who we both like?
My guess, and I wouldn't blame him for this game at all, because he was out there 21-3. Yeah. They looked great in the first half and shut down. Yeah. They just shut down. I assume they will go with Mahomes at this point. I assume they would get rid of him, but not Andy Reid.
More times? Because they only ran it 5 times, so you got that lead. What are you doing running the ball? You're Andy Reid. Why are you throwing the ball that much with a veteran quarterback out there? What are you doing?
What do you think about...
You talk about game management. I'd like to lead the game management to Alex Smith.
Do you give Tennessee any chance at New England?
What? Huh? Chance to do what? Take some barbecue up there? Really?
Let's take a break. Coming up, we're just hours away from the national championship game, and we got to fill all that time. Wilbon is about to make his big pick.
And the committee says it's not ready to expand to an 18 playoff. But should it?
So you don't think the Titans can beat New England?
Beat?
Yeah.
I don't think they can get within 20.
You don't?
20.
Really?
That's my...
Pardon the Interruption is brought to you by Experian. Identity protection has a new identity.
Otherwise known as the game that has forced us to do an hour show today.
Yeah.
Alabama and Georgia. Alabama has been a solid favorite since the conclusion of last week's semifinal games, and a huge majority of the bettors in Vegas have been favoring the Tide. Do you see Alabama as a significant favorite in this game?
I don't know what significant means. I mean, Georgia's really good. They play in the same conference. They're from the same stuff. They recruit the same people. They probably run some of the same stuff, considering one of Nick Saban's pups, was the coach of Georgia, Kirby Smart. So, significant favorite, I don't know what that means. But I would make them a favorite. I would make Alabama, which is one of a string of these things, the favorite over Georgia tonight.
I would, too. I would, too, because they are the gold standard of college football, and because of that interesting statistic in which every time Nick Saban coaches against a guy who was his assistant, he
get that record
beats
again?
him to death. It's 11-0. Yeah. It's 11-0 at the minute. And that doesn't mean that I don't think Georgia is good, and I don't agree with what you're saying, because Georgia was #1 in the country, and they're an SEC team. Do you know what my great fear of this game is tonight?
6-3?
Yes, that it is Jacksonville against Buffalo, because they're both defensive-minded guys, and that you sit to a game where the talent is overwhelming, but there's no soul to the game. There's nothing to hold.
Quarterback for Alabama, whose best attribute is running the ball, a freshman quarterback for Georgia who could get a little stage fright. Yep. You got pros getting stage fright. A freshman in college can get stage fright.
Yes.
So I'm sort of with you on this.
I worry about
it. But I'm okay with these two teams playing. Why not?
Oh, no,
I mean, Ohio State didn't do enough. Clemson didn't do enough.
No.
You know, all these other schools, they didn't do enough.
It's totally fair that they're playing, and they were, Alabama was the 4th-ranked team of these 4. Yeah. It's totally fair that they're in this thing.
But it could be a snoozer, couldn't it?
No, I don't want that. Not like Jacksonville.
Buffalo. My God. Nick Saban will be coaching tonight in his, get this, 7th national championship game. He's won 5 of these things, and if he wins tonight, he'll tie the one and only Bear Bryant for the most titles by any college football coach ever. But none of that kept his old assistant and tonight's opposing coach, Kirby Smart, from saying Saban and the Tide get overlooked. Quote, I think it's kind of lost in the shuffle how well they have been able to compete at a high level for a long time, and it's almost taken for granted at times, close quote. Tony, do you agree with this nonsense that the sainted Nick Saban is taken for granted?
You know that I'm not a big fan of Nick Saban.
Yeah.
You know that I don't find him a sympathetic character. I think you have to separate yourself from Nick Saban and what is being said here, and I do find this realistic. I think that Nick Saban and Bill Belichick have been so great for so long, though God knows that the Cleveland Browns, they weren't all that great, but they've been so great for so long that expectations are always at a premium level. It is believed that every time they put a team out there, that team is going to be great.
Isn't that the respect that we're talking about, that Kirby Smart is saying doesn't exist?
These are, one hand washing the other in terms of respect and in terms of taken for granted. I think it's taken for granted that their teams will always be great.
I think that Nick Saban is appropriately and lavishly slurped. Every time he walks out of his front door, office or home, there's somebody saying he's the greatest thing this side of Bear Bryant.
Well, that's because he
might
is.
tie Bear Bryant.
That's because he is.
But when it's acknowledged, he's making $11 million a year, Tony. That's more than Dabo's 8.5. Coach Kaki's 7 million.
He ought to make the most. He's the best.
But he is.
Okay.
So when a guy is getting praised to death, paid to death, everything's about him is going to be a statue. What more would you have left?
It doesn't mean that quality is taken for granted, isn't taken for granted, because I think, look, here's the problem he's got.
What?
And I don't think it's the worst problem in the world.
He didn't have any
if he goes 9-3, people go, what happened?
If he doesn't.
You know,
he doesn't go 9-3.
That's right. And you take it for granted that he won't.
If he loses tonight, we're still going to say he's the best coach in college football.
Yes.
Ahead of Urban and Coach Kaki and Dabo and whoever else you want to
Because if he loses tonight, he's still got 5. And if he wins tonight, he's got 6.
But that's called appreciation, Holmes.
Tonight concludes the 4th season of the 4-team playoff format in college football. And the commissioners in charge are reportedly in, quote, unanimous agreement, unquote, to keep it that way, despite cries that UCF got hosed and that having 2 SEC teams in the final may be less than satisfying. Wilbon, are you happy with 4,
yes.
or are you ready to expand this thing to 8?
You know, if they did expand it to 8, I wouldn't jump up screaming bloody murder. It'd be okay. Because then you could have those. There's 3 teams I think people would say, wait a minute, what about them? Ohio State, UCF. I don't know who the third one I'm thinking of is. But you could put them in. But I'm not ready to go there yet. I think 4 is working just fine.
I like
not going
8.
to go crazy.
I like 8, and I'm going to tell you, look, okay.
You were on the opposite end of this for years.
And even at my age, I'm able to admit that I was wrong, and I see what's right.
Please, somebody save the tape of this.
Here's why I like 8 for.
Means.
I just think it's more fair. You would have your Power 5 conferences would all be represented with champions, more than likely. You'd have a couple of wild cards, and you would guarantee that a team, the UCF of this year or the Boise State of a few years back, you'd guarantee they have a place at the table. Now, 4 is fine, because you know what? Because 4 is better than 2, and 2 is better than a vote. 2 is better than a vote.
Yes.
I'm just saying I think it is more fair to have 8.
I think you need more clamoring. I think there needs to be more injustice. I think there needs to be another season of complete and utter chaos and somebody getting hosed. And then
but that didn't happen this year.
I know.
It didn't happen.
And therefore, we don't need to go to 8 now.
Because
Let's save
it. See, the problem with those schools is they can't schedule hard enough to convince anyone that they're automatically
going on the road and just.
That's why you have to insist that one of those schools gets in.
Not yet. Let this bullball.
This is so amazing to me that you have aligned yourself with these commissioners who you think that every time they meet in a room, something heinous, to use your word, transpires.
Yes. And let's have some more controversy first.
Time for a break. When we get back, we're going to ask David Pollack how Kirby Smith is different than Nick Saban.
Or Kirby Smart. You mean him?
Kirby Smart.
Just saying. And should we expect either coach to trust his young quarterback to take some risks tonight?
I'll bet there's lots of ways that Kirby Smith is different than Nick Saban.
Me too. Because he's probably an insurance salesman in Athens.
Did they write that in, or did I just say that?
Not that you just made it up.
That is nuts. Kirby.